right, Commissioner, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. We are back on our budget work session on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024, Board of County Commission, Seminole County. We're just coming back from our lunch break, and Commissioner Lockhart will be joining us as soon as she is able to. The next item we're going to bring up is Judge Melanie Chase, the 18th Judicial Circuit Court, and I believe Mr. Jex has a few things to say before the judge gets started. Mr. Jex, if you want to get started.
Sure.
And welcome, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and hopefully we will accommodate your schedule for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm just going to cover a quick couple of budget slides before turning it over to the judge. So the judicial program is funded 53% through our Article 5 Court Technology Fund and 46% through our general fund. The total base budget for the judicial department is $989,000. The FY25 proposed budget is $1,018,000. It's an increase of 3%. I did want to point out that within this budget, there has been some recent turnover. So when we do our final update of our personnel services budget, we may see some of the FY25 numbers come down based on the people that are in the positions now. There's currently 7 FTEs supported by the county in their department. And the FY25 proposed budget includes 7 FTEs as well. There's full detail of their budget included on page 332 of your work session book. With that, I'll turn it over to the judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Chairman, thank you so much for fitting me in. I know I asked for special accommodation. I appreciate that.
Anything for our judges?
Thank you.
Can we bring the microphone closer?
We're very thankful for that. So first, I just wanted to say it's nice to see each of the commissioners. It's nice to see all of you, and it's been so great. I was going to say something more about how I haven't seen some of you in a while, but meeting the county manager and working with him has been wonderful. Always Tricia Johnson's wonderful, but the people that you have working with us, we appreciate very much. I wanted to just start with thanking you for approving our fiscal year 24 budget. You gave us a new position that I hope if I have a moment to tell you how well that's going, because I want to bring good news back to you. And we were able to bring the budget to the maximum of the 3% as was requested. And good afternoon, Commissioner. No. And I also wanted to point out that we, in the past, have come to you for AV-related funds every year, and you are kind and generous and give us those, and it helps us. We usually ask for $75,000 for each of the 3 courthouses, for all of the courtrooms in the 3 courthouses, and because you are funding the renovations for us, we are not asking for that because we're going to have that. We'll get those in another way, so we're thankful for that. We had mentioned possibly a new position. I'm aware that the general fund is not, there's not going to be any new employees, but if I had a moment to talk to you about why that was something that we were thinking about, I'd like to be able to tell you that. May I?
Please.
All right, so first I'd like to tell you, so the general magistrate position is a civil general magistrate that you all gave us last year. We're very thankful, and I can't wait to tell you how well it's working out. She's been hearing civil hearings for just about 6 months, and she has had over 700 referrals from the judges for hearings, which is a lot. I had expected the civil lawyers to be a little slower to warm up to a general magistrate. Some of the folks that practice civil law aren't used to being referred to a magistrate. I had just myself thought that we might get even 50% of objections to being referred to the general magistrate, but we're at 10%, which is great. Wow. And the hearings and matters that have been resolved based on sending it to the GM is over 300. In the 6 months, and they're called exceptions, but it's like an appeal from a GM. She's had only 16, so it's really successful.
Great.
We've had an assistant that's been helping the general magistrate was temporary funding, OPS money that we're going to lose, so we're losing that position on June 30th. So our thought in asking you all if that would be something that you would consider for an administrative assistant was that the general magistrate can write the reports and things that her administrative assistant did. Well, she writes the reports, but the secretarial kind of side of it, she can do that. But it would be having a person paid at a much higher rate doing something that could be supported by somebody that isn't quite, she's paid half that. So that was the thought. We understand how everything is. We're very grateful. So if it's not something that is in the cards for us this year, we're happy to talk to you about it next year if we can, but that was the thought. We didn't want you to think that we're going to come to you every year and ask for new FTEs. That wasn't the plan. We're grateful for what you've given us. So
Great.
That's the report back.
Okay. So if I'm following the discussion, we have a budget before us, and you're asking us to consider an additional FTE. Is that what I'm
That is-
hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of budget impact do you believe that would have? Any idea?
We had asked, this is Kelly Bierfen from Court Administration and Brandy Jenkins, who
Welcome.
do this every day. So are you
I can-
asking how much the,
I can address.
Tim, you've already
Based
had
on-
this discussion?
Based on the information provided, we had the estimated total position cost at $61,600.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Your Honor?
no, we're excited about the movement in the Criminal Justice Center.
Okay.
We're very happy and thankful.
Yes. Great, thank you. All right, I will start, Mr. Gray.
I didn't want to take anyone's thunder. Judge Chase did mention this to me about 6 weeks ago, or talking. So what I have done, even though we don't have the position in here, we have a lot of vacancies that I wouldn't say a lot, but it's going down. There might be an opportunity for us, and we're reviewing that now, of just actually shifting one of our vacant positions that we don't need at this time. And when we do, I could bring that one back to the board, but actually supporting the judge in this case.
Fair enough. Okay.
I'm working on that at this point.
Great, I'm glad you all are interacting and doing so. We'll start at the far end. Commissioner Constantine, any inquiries?
Not right now, no.
Commissioner Lockhart?
More beef jerky, please.
So I'm going to change this up a little bit. This is your one and only chance.
No. You can't do that.
Well, then we'll start at this end. Commissioner Herr?
Can we put him in contempt?
We have a judge here. We have some prosecutors
So here,
and a
let
public
me
defender.
bring this back, since we've rushed everybody along. First of all, I appreciate you coming and reporting the results of what we invested in last year. And 300 resolved cases on behalf of the citizens of Seminole County it's remarkable. I mean, it's remarkable.
Just for clarification, it's 300 matters, so it could have been hearings that were set, but it's 300 things that are moving.
I mean, I appreciate even that clarification. And 700 that took place, I mean, those are outstanding results. Where I would leave us is that I would really love to see us figure out a way to make this happen, because slowing that down defeats the whole purpose of the investment that we made to start out with. So that, it just seems like we're not being wise about the original investment. So with that, I would thank you. Great job, and we appreciate you.
Commissioner Delary, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, thank you very much for being here with your staff. We always appreciate the justice system and how efficient you all are. And I would also echo Commissioner Herr's statement about reporting back to us about that investment that we all made last year, or for this year. And you're absolutely correct, Commissioner, that we should look at this additional individual. If it's a way to move a FTE around, then allow the county manager to do that. If not, then I'm sure that Tim can work his magic another way. But with everything that's going on with the courthouse over the next couple of years, with all these renovations, efficiency is going to be the key. So this is just one more aspect of it, that we need to be efficient. And thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate all your hard work.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Apologies for my tardiness.
Oh,
Good things coming from the judiciary, and I love that you're happy, because
we're in such a good place. You all are doing quite a lot for us, so
Well,
we're thankful.
well, thank you for being thankful. There are a handful that maybe aren't. So we appreciate you. I think that I also would support the additional support staff and how we can collaborate together to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Judge.
Costin.
Thank you very much.
That's it? Great. I would also thank the judge and your staff here for being here today and helping us understand that. I would support our staff working with the judge and on this ask. I can only tell you from working in the court systems all across this country, there are backlogs that are, I mean, I've got cases that are 9 years old that just can't move through the system quick enough because of shortages and efficiencies. So it seems to me a small ask financially if we can move things along for all parties involved, plaintiffs, defendants, regardless of what that matter might be before the courts. Anything we can do to expedite that, I think, is a win-win. And in the grand schemes of $1 billion budget, this is not a huge ask. So that being said, thank you all very much. No other questions. We'll let Her Honor get back to
Thank you so much. It was good to see all of you.
doling out justice.
Same here.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for being here. Next up, we will have our state's attorney, Mr. Phil Archer. And Tim Jex, do you have any
I'll make a few
forward
comments
information?
just about their budget slides. So the county's funding of the state attorney's office is 100% from our Article 5 fund for court technology. The current budget is $467,000, increasing to $480,000. That includes county funding towards state FTE. The full budget detail is included on page 337 of the work session document.
Our chuckling was related to Article 5, not you. We spent the majority of our
I
morning talking
understand.
about Article 5.
I understand. And before I get started, I know I've reached out individually at certain events to thank you all for that wonderful renovation and new offices that we have. And I know Mr. Trettis joins me in thanking you profusely. It sets a standard when those people that come before us and enter that beautiful office. And I can tell you, we've had a horrible shortage of attorneys over the last couple of years throughout the state of Florida, throughout the country, trying to find attorneys, and including prosecutors and assistant public defenders. And it has caused at least 1 or 2 hires to come to us because of that beautiful building. Actually, and no slight to Brevard County, but we reached out to a gentleman who had interviewed in Seminole County, and he lived down south. When I reached out to him and to see if he would take the job, he looked down, he saw a 321 area code, and he says, "Well, wait a minute, it's for the Seminole County office, right? Not the Brevard County." And I assured him, yes, it was in the beautiful new office. So thank you all very much for that. It really is going to help us in recruitment. And when we can interview people in those offices, it's just amazing. The other thing, too, I'd be reluctant, if I didn't introduce Will Shiner back here. Will, stand up, raise your hand. Will Shiner is the next state attorney. He'll be taking over as soon as he can push me out. He keeps asking me when I'm getting out of the office. But, Will was, ran unopposed as in an open seat, which I'm not sure has ever happened in the state of Florida in a state attorney race. But I think that shows a level of support from law enforcement in both counties, defense bar, and everyone else. So I did want to introduce him. I've told him how wonderful you are, so please don't pick on me today, my last time before you. So with that, like I said, I appreciate that every year we've had great partnership with you all on our funding, and we stay within that 3% this year, and so I'll open it up, whatever questions you have.
Okay, we'll try this one more time. Commissioner Constantine.
I'm glad you like the new building. It's always wonderful to hear somebody that's positive about it. Thank you.
No questions about your budget, but something that will potentially impact us down the road budgetarily is the potential medical examiner situation. And I know our board has discussed this at work sessions, and you and I have had conversations about it. Since we're doing a little bit of handing over the baton, passing the torch, I just want to make sure that the county manager is still planning to have a kumbaya of stakeholders on that medical examiner situation.
Yes, ma'am. We're working, and based on the direction that you all had given us at the retreat, we're looking at a couple options that we are going to be bringing back with you. And I know the chairman who sits on that committee for us, we've been working with his office as well.
Okay, fantastic. It's not a small number, as you and I discussed, and but certainly your people the teams that are involved have a great stake in how that plays out, so.
Absolutely, and again, I would encourage, Stacy Salmons, who's my chief assistant here in Seminole County, been here for a long time, and she is a wealth of knowledge in that, and so if you do at some point need somebody on a committee, task force, or whatever, from our office, she would be a natural choice. Mr. Shiner's up to speed on it, and I'm sure he would join me. I believe he's keeping her in that role, and so she'll be really crucial to that.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do, and congratulations.
Thank you.
What's next?
Play a lot of pickleball, so maybe more pickleball over here.
Everyone in Springs has some new courts. Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Archer, thank you very much for presenting. Your level of service here in the county and for all of us has been truly at a very high level for all these years, and I want to thank you for that. You've been very helpful for all of us through these past years, and I do wish you great success in your next endeavor, whatever that may be.
Okay.
And it's nice to see that you have a good successor, and your leadership goes very noticed. So thank you for your hard work and all the things that you've done for this county. Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Hurd.
Thank you, Chairman. Yep, congratulations on your, I guess, move into pickleball superiority, if there is such a thing, and for all the work that you've done. I appreciate your budget, and congratulations. I always say you're not a mom until your kid has a meltdown in Target and you have to deal with it publicly, so I don't know how I feel about the unopposed. Maybe it's jealousy. I'm just going to own that. So congratulations. We are here to support you and the work that you do, and if we can ever be of help, I don't know that the folks on the board know, but there was a day called August 1 in 1986 when a certain young lady walked into the state attorney's office to meet a certain state attorney on his lunch hour to get married at the courthouse. And so anytime I think about you all transitioning, I still think that was the day that Norm Wolfinger had asked him to go to lunch. And he said no, because I have a date. And so I just think the work you guys do, all of you, including the public defender, is really God's work. It's what keeps our country moving, and we welcome you to this position, and we are here for you.
Great. Well, Phil, thank you very much for your willingness to step up and make tough decisions on prosecutions on behalf of the citizens of this county. I know you've worked very closely with the sheriff, really making some breaking moves in this opioid legislation that happened here a few years ago. So I think it's made it a much better community, although it's a great place to begin with. But it's another role of the collaboration between all of our partners in the community and ensuring that Seminole County remains with a high quality of life. So we sincerely appreciate that, and good luck on your retirement. I hope you get to enjoy your family. Life is short, it goes quickly. I'm sure you understand that. And Will, you and I are going to get to know each other real well.
Yeah.
It's called due process funding. Phil and I have had the opportunity to discuss that, and we're going to need your advocacy, obviously, in this opioid prosecution stuff, which the unintended consequences to our medical examiner costs have really gone up through the roof. And we're a little different because not everybody is prosecuting these cases. Therefore, they're not subject to these costs. But I think we all have a core belief bad people need to be put where they should be and taken away from where they shouldn't be. So I'll get to know you real well. So thank you. Phil, again, thank you very much. Good luck to you. If there's no other inquiries, we'll release State's Attorney. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Next up is our guardian ad litem. It's going to be Amber Padrick. Ms. Padrick, welcome. Tim, do you have any
I do.
leading?
The Guardian ad litem budget is 100% funded through our general fund. The FY24 adopted budget is $155,000. It's going up to $157,600. Not included in these figures is some funding in our fleet and facilities department to do painting and some maintenance at the offices for the Guardian ad litem. They have 2 FTEs, and the FY25 proposed budget stays at 2. And you can see their full budget detail on page 330 of the work session document. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Patrick.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to continue the afternoon by saying thank you very much for your support last year with our budget request of a new FTE position. That has been instrumental in ensuring the efficiency within our office and loading information into our database, given the fact that we were still in transition from working remote and coming back into the office. So that full-time employee position that we gained has been a godsend. So thank you very much. We're not requesting too much this year, in addition to what we have. Thankfully, our dependency cases have gone slightly dipped from last year as we continue to work with community partners and preventative services and sharing resources that are available in the community. I'm very thankful to Commissioner Delary for heading the Community Alliance meetings and his leadership there. Within the conversations I've had with many of you, you hopefully see that we're taking the difficulties to the community in community representation, and we're hopefully, we've been real successful in getting that buy-in and accepting some more commitment from our volunteers, and utilizing community resources rather than dipping in funds that we know is already short. But this county has been very supportive of our agency, and we are very thankful for that.
Great, thank you, Ms. Patrick. We'll start on this end. Commissioner Herr.
Thank you, Amber, for everything you do. And I would tell you that I think taking those needs to a volunteer Army Corps, because what they do is amazing, also provides members of our community with an opportunity to positively influence a child's life. And the reward with that is huge. So thank you for everything you do, and thank you for the modest budget.
Thank you.
Commissioner Delary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amber, thank you and your staff and all the things that you do, especially for one of the most vulnerable groups of people that are out there, the children. So you all do God's work, and thank you very much.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Every year we have the same conversation. Are you sure this is all you need? Are you sure? You do so much with so little for, as Commissioner Delary said, the most vulnerable in our community. And this year, when we had our conversation, Amber actually said, "How can I help you?" So anything that we can do, I know we make this offer every year, and you say, "I'll let you know if there's anything that I need," but we genuinely mean it. We want to support the work that you're doing. It is remarkable, and I just others should take note. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
Amber, we don't say that to too many groups. You're one of the few.
Did you watch this morning by any
So
chance?
far, the only one.
Unfortunately, I was not able to.
No.
Commissioner Constantine.
Amber, great job. You're always responsive to our needs and to the community's needs. Thank you very much, and thank you for this very austere budget.
Much appreciated.
Amber, thank you very much, and I will argue this is probably one of the largest ROI budget line items we have in this county.
Amen.
For the amount of work and benefit versus the cost, great work. And collaborating with those community partners is just an additional bonus on top of all this. So I will echo some of the comments that were made. Is every year when I look at this, I'm like, we're really doing some great work for the actual money spent in the community on behalf of our children and families and so forth. So again, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Amber.
Next up is our public defender, Mr. Blaise Trias.
County support of the Public Defender's Office is 100% funded through the Article 5 fund. The FY '24 adopted budget is $232,000. It's going up to $266,500, an increase of 35,000, excuse me. But note that the FY '24 budget did include a reduction of $65,000 where the Public Defender's Office turned it in. With full detail of their budgets on page 335 of the work session document. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Tredis.
Good afternoon,
sir.
Chairman Tim Bauer and Board of County Commissioners. I'm Blaise Tredis, Public Defender for Seminole and Brevard counties. I thank you for funding the office, the information technology budget in the past, and I thank you for this year's budget, which, as you can see from the slide, there is an increase this year, but that is because there was a 22% decline basically last year. And if you go back 7 years, the office is basically being funded at the same level that it was 7 years ago. I've been able to save money, and I've not asked for money that I don't need, and that's what I've done in the past, and will continue to do that in the future. I'd also like to thank you and say that I'm grateful on behalf of the Public Defender's Office and my staff for the wonderful Justice James E.C. Perry Courthouse Annex. It really is a marvelous facility. It's a source of pride in the legal community and the community at large, I think. I think it will adequately serve the needs of the people of Seminole County for, it should be 70 or 80 years, I would think. So it's really, the Board of County Commissioners, I think 4 of the 5 up here were here when the vote was for approval, so I appreciate those 4 especially. But Seminole County has always done, I think, an amazing job with its capital improvement expenditures, and this is just another example of a job very well done. So thank you very much for that on behalf of the people. And I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you very kindly. Commissioner Herr.
I was the one that wasn't here during the funding, but I will pass on your gratitude to the redhead who sat here before me. How about that? And it is her name on the building appropriately. So we appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate the fact that we're funding you at less than any number that we've seen here on the slide. So building efficiencies into the program in IT is not easy to do, but you've done it well, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've always been very transparent. You've always been upfront. You've always been frugal with the public's money. Well done. Have a great day.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Mr. Tredis, my question is probably more for our finance team than it is for you, but because Article 5 funding has been a truly, not being sarcastic, but really a great source of conversation today, can you help me understand the difference between the Article 5 funding that is split up between the other agencies and how some are able to somehow not come to ask for additional funds and others need additional funds? Help me understand the pot and why. I'm not putting you on the spot, Mr. Tredis, at all, but now it's just glaringly different.
My comments would be the county's $2 Article 5 revenue. It's one pot. It has historically funded the public defender, state attorney, and judicial. I can say in my experience that the public defender's office budget hasn't really been contingent on the revenue. Those years when the revenue went up, you can see that their expenditures did not, but that there has been historically an intent to live within the revenues of the fund as best as possible. I can't explain exactly how he's able to do that, but I do know the funds go towards court technology, and the public defender's office, their budget stays pretty consistent year over year.
So one Article 5 fund that is collected for the county to then redistribute between how many entities?
Judicial, state attorney, and public defender have been the agencies that we funded historically.
And where does the clerk's Article 5 funding come from?
Any additional costs being added to that fund are coming from the general fund.
And then he also has, as you know,
State.
the $1.90, so we split, so it's actually a $4 fee that's collected. We get $2, the clerk gets $2, but then he has to revert 10 back to the state. So what the discussion that we had this morning about his Article 5.
10 cents.
10 cents.
10 cents, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay,
Yeah,
got
sorry.
it.
Thank
Yep,
you.
okay.
That the $1.90 is what we were talking about this morning with the trust fund.
Okay, so $4, $2 of it comes to us. We divide it up among the 3 entities.
Right.
The other $2, which actually becomes $1.90, is for the clerk to spend on his needs.
Correct.
Got it.
I might make a suggestion, Commissioner Lockhart, and that is that I don't believe this $4 amount in the Florida statutes has changed for, I don't know, more than 20 years. And it would seem to me that the Association of Counties might be able to convince the legislature to increase that to $6 a page.
So the legislature really does not care what we think. I've noticed.
This is also it's a fee on mortgages. It's not going to hit the broad economy or people where it hurts most people in the wallet. It's for mortgages, the filing of deeds and mortgages. So it's just an idea.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about that it's never changed.
Yeah. Very, very
Not that I
valid-
need more money.
Very valid point.
Commissioner Constantine?
And thank you, Blaise, because we've had it in our priorities for a long time at the Florida Association of Counties, and they've ignored it. But I do appreciate the idea, and thank you very much for, again, doing such a good job with doing a lot of good with very little. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, sir, for being here. I'd only point out that it's not lost on me that the public defender who's charged with defending those that otherwise may not be able to defend themselves is funded far less than the prosecutor. Just saying.
I'm used to that in the legislature, too.
Thank you very much for being
Thank you,
here.
definitely.
I would point out, hopefully, my office sent to you all an email to address that $4 fee. There's actually state funding in addition to that under Article 5 that goes to fund those offices. I would share it with you, but my efficient assistant grabbed this morning's folder and took all that documentation away from me. But is the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability for the state of Florida, and you can go in and see every funding mechanism for all the circuit courts, how much they're paying in salaries to each entity, including the judges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and right on down the line. It would be helpful for, I think I shared that with Tim as well. So next up is going to be our links presentation, and we have Miss Tiffany Hawkins here to do the presentation. And Tim, you want to open this up and welcome Ms. Hawkins?
Yeah. Tiffany Hawkins is here from Lynx. I serve on the Lynx Finance and Audit Committee. We've worked together for a few years, and Tiffany provided a group of slides that's talking about their overall budget. Seminole County is responsible for about 12.5% of the total funding with regional partners, and I'll turn it over to Tiffany.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, thank you for having us today and allowing us to present our FY25 budget. I'm joined today by Mr. Leonard Antman, our CFO. We are going to tag team this presentation as we have done in previous years. We'll go through a brief links overview just as a reminder of what we do and how we do it, and then we will go to the budget and the funding request. As you all know, Lynx is a creature of state statute. That statute goes back to 1989 when it was then the Central Florida Commuter Rail Authority. The name was changed to Central Florida Regional Transportation Authority in 1993. And that statute changed all references from commuter rail to public transportation. And that laid the groundwork for the transition of Central Florida Regional Transportation Authority and then Tri-County Transit, which that transition occurred in 1994. So here we are 30 years later. Highlight, 30 years ago, we had 562 employees with 177 vehicles and 50 routes. So today we are at almost a little over 1,200 total Lynx employees. 85% of those are drivers, mechanics, and those who get service on the street. The remainder of the administration is keeping that service on the street and for our reporting. We do have 79 routes with over 300 vehicles. This is our family of services. This has been in our family of services for over the last 25 years, with the exception of NeighborLink, FastLink, and SunRail connections. Those all have come on in the last 10 and 15 years. Daily, we are at 68 traditional fixed route service, 11 NeighborLink on-demand routes. And while our buses do not run 24 hours, our operations certainly are 24 hours a day. Some of our buses and routes have 15-minute frequency, but over 50% are at 60-minute headways. About 50% of our ridership is on the tourism corridors and those huge employment centers in those corridors. Across all modes, we're averaging upwards of 60,000 a day. Sometimes we are at 65,000 trips per weekday. And in FY23, our last audited numbers, we were at little over 18 million passenger trips for FY23. I highlight paratransit because that is a significant increase coming up over the next few years. Paratransit trips for FY23 were just over, or just a little under 600,000. And if the ridership trends continue, we could see about 650,000 trips throughout the three-county region for FY24. We provided the chart to show the increase in the eligible paratransit customers from 2019 to 2024. And this trend is in line with the significant population growth of the three-county region over the last 5 years. And again, as we always do in our annual reporting, highlight those agencies and the reports that we are required to file on an annual or every 3-year basis. Last year, we had our once every 3-year triennial review from the Federal Transit Administration, and I'm happy to report that that was a clean report. There were no findings, no deficiencies. And as of last week, the Florida Department of Transportation completed their once every 3-year review of links, and we anticipate that report in 30 days to be in line with the Federal Transit Administration report, and as well as we report annually to the Florida Transportation Commission. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Antman for the budget overview.
Welcome,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Welcome.
Thank you. And so with that, our budget assumptions, just to note, have all been vetted through both the Finance Committee and the Oversight Committees for links. Commissioner Lockhart is on our board, and Tim is on our Finance Committee. And so none of these are new to them or shouldn't be new to them. In any event, our assumptions on the operating side is that we would maintain the fiscal year 24 level of service moving into fiscal year 25, and that we would have no fare increases in fiscal 25. Now, that is an assumption that was built into the fiscal year 25 budget, but is always subject to change at the board discretion. We will utilize budget stabilization funds to normalize the path back to full funding. Back a few years ago, at the beginning of the COVID era, we spent 3 years at the same funding level, and now we're at the point where it was a 5-year path back to full funding. This will be the 3rd year. On the capital side, we plan to have fleet replacement to right-size the fleet and provide safe and reliable service for our riders. And also, the balance of the major pieces of the program will be for passenger amenities and for facility improvements. And I'll go over that in more detail when we get there. The operating budget itself comes in at $208.1 million for fiscal year 25. It is a balanced budget, so there are full funding of revenues to offset all the expenses.
I'm sorry. May I?
Commissioner Lockhart, you have an inquiry, please.
Well, It's a balanced budget because the deficit is being picked up by the funding partners.
Well, it's the funding partner, I mean, we have a funding partner calculation that's done. The way the funding works is that we have a small portion of funding, and we'll look at that as, when we get to look at the revenues, is that we have some federal funds, we have fares that come in, we have block grant from the states, but whatever's left, we don't have a dedicated funding. The 3 counties pick up the balance of it through calculation based on the service hours that are received in each of the areas for fixed route and the number of trips originated out of each county on paratransit.
It's balanced because we pick up the deficit.
Understood.
Okay,
Okay. Anything further?
not now.
Okay. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you. So on, one of the things to know in customer fares is a slight increase year over year, but for the most part, we're at the point where we believe our new normalcy is for ridership levels. I'll go over the significant changes in revenue. Our federal revenue is increasing by $1.5 million year over year, and that's due to a rural funding from the federal government. When we had the last census, it was anticipated that the rural funding would be discontinued when we built the '24 budget because the rural areas were diminished tremendously. However, they are providing us with a grant this year, and so that represents the $1.5 million increase over there. On the state revenue, we're increasing by $800,000, and that comes from 2 areas. We have about a $400,000 increase on the block grant provided by FDOT, and we have the balance of the increase associated with the Road Ranger program from providing additional hours of service. On local revenue, we're increasing our budget by $4.3 million, and that comes from 2 areas. Orange County initiated this year their ATSP program, which is the Accelerated Transit and Safety Program, and they're providing additional funding for both capital and operating for additional shelters and service hours in Orange County. And so out of that $4.3 million, $3.8 million of the increase is from the Orange County ATSP program. The balance of the increase is associated with additional operating costs associated with the limo services we provide through City of Orlando. And then the balancing of the budget where we are working on the 5-year program back to full funding is the use of the budget stabilization funds, and you can see that this year we're earmarked to use $24 million of budget stabilization funds. In '24 it was $32 million, almost 33. Each year that'll go down till we get back to full funding in another couple years. And so, as I referenced, the local revenue, which is local funding partner and the stabilization funds, account for 72% of all of the revenue that we have. As we noted, based on Commissioner Lockhart's comment, we do not have any dedicated funding. We get a small amount from the state revenue in the form of block grants, and we have some federal revenue that we use in lieu of providing capital for ADA and for some of our preventive maintenance programs, but the balance of it is all local money, 72% from the local folks and 10% of it comes from customer fares. On the expense side, same total dollar amount as on the revenue side. However, the increases are on 3 basic areas. There's an $8 million increase on wages and benefits. $6 million of that $8 million is associated with the contractual increases for our union employees. $1 million is associated with a increase in the cost of providing medical benefits, and the other $1 million is associated with the Orange County ATSP program. Moving down to other services is a category that includes professional services, planning, contract maintenance, legal fees, advertising, security, janitorial services. And as such, the increase in other services of $1.5 million, $500,000 is towards the cost of implementing the new ERP system that Lynx is in the process of implementing. $600,000 is associated with planning studies, and the balance of it is associated with increase in the cost for security services, which is largely labor-driven. The last major increase is on purchased transportation. Our paratransit operations is a fully contracted out service, and as such, it's sort of the same as additional labor. But in any event, that is going up by $1.5 million, and that combines both the contractual cost increase and the additional trips that we're anticipating in fiscal year '25. Out of the expenses, 59% of the total expenses are wages and benefits, and 17% is the purchased transportation, which is an extension of our staff. So if you look at that, over 3/4 of the total expenses is labor-oriented. Moving on to the capital side of the budget, $145.2 million is included for capital, and it is also a fully funded, balanced budget. So as such, the bulk of our capital dollars are usually provided through the federal government, through FTA. This year is no different. $131.4 million out of the $145 is from the federal government, $4.7 from the state. The state funding is for a combination of funding they provided towards the Pine Hills Transfer Center, 2 replacement vehicles for our Road Ranger program, and the balance of it for paratransit vehicles to service our rural territories. On the local government side, $9.1 million, and that's a combination of funds from Orange County for additional shelters through the ATSP program they kicked off, about $1 million towards the Pine Hills Transfer Center, and the balance of it is the local capital funding provided towards matching of federal and state grants. And as you can see, better than 90% of the funding is federal dollars. So the breakout of the $145 million, usually almost half of the entire capital budget goes to vehicles. This year's no different. There's $67 million earmarked for vehicles. That includes 50 fixed route CNG 40-foot buses. 25 of those were ordered during fiscal year '24 and will be received early in fiscal '25, and then 25 additional vehicles to be ordered in fiscal '25. It does include 1 electric 40-foot vehicle to pilot in our fixed route service to see how that works out for us. It includes 130 paratransit vehicles, 70 of them ordered during fiscal '24 to be received in '25, and 60 additional vehicles to be received during, to be ordered during fiscal '25. It also includes 7 new neighborLink vehicles. On facilities, the $40.3 million is a combination of a couple things. First, there's $17 million set aside towards a future acquisition of land for a Southern Operation Base based on FTA and board approval. There's $8.5 million set aside for HVAC replacement on the 3 major facilities that Lynx has, the original equipment when the buildings were built approximately 20 years ago. There is $7 million set aside for window replacement at the LCS office tower and station area, and $3.75 million set aside for bus bay improvements at the LCS area. When the LCS was built, it was all 40-foot buses. We now have approximately 38 Arctic, which are 60-foot buses. So we will be repurposing 6 40-foot bays to create 4 60-foot bays. On the passenger amenity side, the $32 million includes $17.5 million for the Pine Hills Transfer Center. It includes $6 million from Orange County for their advanced transit and safety program, and the rest of it is associated with the traditional amenities program for shelters in each of the 3 counties. As you can see, almost half, 46.2% of the total funds are for vehicles, and then 28% and 22% for facilities and passenger amenities. Those 3 areas account for 96% of the total capital budget. Moving on to partner funding. Orange County provides 75% of the total local funding, and that's associated with the fact that they receive 75% of the services that we provide. The balance of it is split pretty evenly between Osceola and Seminole County. And so for fiscal year '25, the fixed and route enabling service is coming in at $78.1 million, paratransit at $28.1, bringing our total operating budget for fiscal year '25 to $106.3 million. Then we have the local capital contribution for matching on grants at $3.8 million, and this is the first time there's a new item on here, the Sunrail feeder routes. The county's taking on the funding of Sunrail effective January 1st, and so FDOT is paying the first 3 months of the year, and each of the counties are picking up their share of the cost for 9 months of the year beginning January 1. So that comes in at 1.1, almost $1.2 million, bringing the total partner contributions to $111.2 million. That brings us to the specific funding request for Seminole County. Fixed route service at $8 million, paratransit at $5.1, bringing the total operating request to $13.1 million, local area capital at $376,000, and the 9 months of Sunrail feeder service at $542,000 for a total budget of $14 million. With that, I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very kindly. Let's start at the far end. Commissioner Constantine.
I would like to say that I want to hear what Commissioner Lockhart has to say, but you guys will give me a hard time about that, so I'll just start with this. I heard nothing and I've seen nothing since I was on the board about fixing the superstation down at Fern Park. I hear a lot about the one over in Osceola County. I don't see anything about that. That is near something that we're spending a good deal of money on at Oxford Road. And, for years, I've been saying we needed an upgrade there. And I see no planning in the future on that particular thing. Could somebody comment on that, please?
Yes, Commissioner. It probably has been about 18 months since we have had a conversation with staff to find an appropriate location for the Oxford Super Stop. So the redevelopment of the High Line and how that circulation works, we have been remiss in following up on that, but that is something that can definitely be put in the work program.
Okay, going on the operating budget, one of the things that, again, we wanted to, when your income continues to grow, or when your revenues continue, when your expenses continue to grow, you got to have to find new revenue. One of the things that really started in pushing is things like advertising, interest, and I see both of these are either stabilized or going down when you're talking about your 2025. While, obviously the local revenue funding partners is going up 14 million, even though your whole budget is going up 12 million. So, I mean, is there anything to do to stop the flatlining of like advertising, and why is interest and other income going down so much?
Interest is going back to a more traditional level. During the last couple of years, with the Fed rates being so high, we've been able to take advantage of that and earn a little more interest than normal. Going forward, it's anticipated that the Fed rates will start to come down and the ability to earn that additional interest will be limited. And the same thing happens with advertising. Pre-COVID, we were having additional advertising. During COVID, that went back down. Right now, we're collecting the contract minimum guarantee on advertising. But one of the things, just to point out, on the local funding partner revenue, yes, it is going up $14 million, but and as you notice, that's more than the total increase. But that's not all because of increase in costs. That's associated with the fact that we went for 3 years during the beginning of COVID without recognizing any of the increased costs and asking for additional funding. We had the same budget for 3 years. Now we're trying to move back towards full funding because we have a certain amount of budget stabilization funds that are helping us with that program. By the end of 5 years, those funds will be gone, and if we don't get back to full funding, we won't be able to provide the service that all of the counties are requesting.
Also, and I'm throwing some of these things out. I know that there's going to be a lot more, and I'm going to leave some of these to others, but I see also, you got a beautiful building there. I remember negotiating the lease for the Regional Planning Council to move downtown, which is where they should have been instead of in other areas. But even here, you're looking at your leases going down. Are you losing people? Are you aggressively not going for additional folks to lease up in that building?
No, that's lease expense, not lease income. That's our cost.
What about leasing income?
That's up in interest and other income. The other income includes the lease, and they have an existing contract that's not significant. Our lease income is from two areas. It's from the Regional Planning Council, and it's from the restaurant down in the lobby.
Are you, but you have space in that building for others, for other leases, correct?
We do have space in the building. As we move forward with the Sunrail transition, we are going to have to look at where we put additional FTEs. With that, there's not as much space as one would anticipate. It's the other side of the fourth floor, Commissioner.
So you're saying that the leases are in the interest and other income, so therefore, that's going down like $900,000?
Right, well, the decrease is all on the interest side. The leases are flat year over year. That probably marginal increase is
3%, I recall.
Right.
That's all. Right
Commissioner
now.
Lockhart.
For the right to come back.
Yeah. We all get a second shot if we need it with additional questions. A couple of things. Lenny, your opening comments about my being on the board and Mr. Jex being on the Finance Committee and that this shouldn't be a surprise to us was, I was biting my tongue a little bit because I think Mr. Jex has expressed during those Finance Committee meetings his concern. And Mr. Swenson has expressed as a member of the Oversight Committee his concerns. And yet somehow those don't get reflected in the overall minutes and reflection when it's reported to the full board. So unless you are a board member who sits at the Finance Committee meetings or gets briefings from their staff member or attends the Oversight Committee meetings, which I've started doing, those other board members wouldn't know that the concerns and objections have been voiced. So that is a concern of mine. I think that, well, let me just go through page by page with my questions because I think that'll make it a little less
And if I could, just want
cumbersome.
to tell you that my comment about being aware was not meant to be covering the entire budget, but meant to refer to the actual budget assumptions.
Well, I think there are some budget assumptions that have been made, including the statement that the funding for the Southern Operations Center was approved by the board. And that's further on the slides, further down. But, I don't know if prior board members knew that they voted to support the Southern Operations Center and at what cost, but I've asked for the minutes from that meeting when that occurred because you continue to say that, and no one's able to provide me the minutes of when that occurred.
The board hasn't voted to acquire land for Southern Operation Base. What I mentioned in the capital budget is that there's $17 million set aside for the acquisition of land based upon approval of FTA and the board at some point in the future.
Okay, that's not what you said, but I appreciate your clarification. So on the slide that has the trip counts, daily and annual service paratransit, could we have these numbers broken out for Seminole County?
Absolutely. We can get those to you within the next couple days.
That'd be helpful for us. I mean, we all get this is a regional system, and you all are doing a lot of work with our partner counties, but I think, we need to understand the use and the need for our citizens who are funding this. Then on key budget assumptions, which is a couple of slides down, wanted to address the no fare increases assumption. The new kid on the block, asking lots of questions, trying to get up to speed, and it was, I read in the audit that there has not been a fare increase since 2009. We've heard time and again today in our conversations about inflation and how everything is going up. And so one of the things that I asked about was when the last time a fare study had been done. And I think, Ms. Hawkins, you said that there was going to be more discussion about that. Could you expand that?
Yes, Commissioner. At our July oversight, we will talk about the history of the fare increases at length, as well as the process that is prescribed by FTA for doing a fare analysis. It's lengthy, but we will take it to the oversight and then to the board to get their direction on whether or not to pursue a fare study.
And I think one of my concerns, and I've shared this with you, this oversight committee, I'm not sure I understand its purpose and its role in supporting the board and its decision-making, because things go to the oversight committee, and they may never come out of the oversight committee for the full board to know about or to vote on, or the synopsis of the oversight committee is given by the chair of the oversight committee, who is always a commissioner. So you have staff members who are, staff serving with one elected official, who is the chair, and just the dynamic for that, I think it does not create an opportunity for staff to really dig in and ask the hard questions and do the hard work of really maybe finding some of the efficiencies. That those conversations could be happening and maybe they aren't because of the dynamic. And I've shared that before, and I'm sharing it publicly now, but when the Oversight Committee has the opportunity to have that conversation, I would hope that the board that's going to vote to make the decision on whether or not to pursue a study will get all of the same information that is provided to the Oversight Committee.
Yes.
Okay. So the utilization of the budget stabilization funds, how much total budget stabilization funds have there been over the course of the last 3 years? Lenny, you mentioned that over the last 3 years, because of COVID, there was budget stabilization money.
Yeah, in fiscal year +24 was $32 million. It was right around near there in fiscal '23. It was the first year we utilized those funds. And so that was about 65,000, 24,000 this year. It would bring you up to about almost.
You mean million?
What?
Million, not
The total
thousand.
was just over $1 million. When we started, it was about right around $107, $108 million.
You said 65,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Million,
he meant
yes.
millions.
Originally, I think the originally was 100 and some million, 102 million or
It
something
was
like
it was
that.
around $107, $108 million originally.
And where
And I
did,
apologize for
that's
it's
okay.
millions.
Where did those budget stabilization funds originate?
Okay. What happened was we were provided with ARPA and CARES dollars to help fund the operation of links. All right. We continued to bill, we had the funding partner revenue coming in, and so whatever revenues that were used from CARES and ARPA, the offset that we didn't have to use as a funding partner was put into the budget stabilization fund.
So were any of the budget stabilization funds provided by local funding partners?
They were all provided by local funding partners.
Okay, so it's
they were Seminole County CARES and ARPA funds somehow in there.
No, it was not CARES and ARPA funds. CARES and ARPA funds were all spent to pay for operating expenses.
During that time.
Yes.
Well, I think the question was, I want to make sure, I think there's two different, it's my recollection that the ARPA and CARES money came directly to Lynx.
Correct.
Yes.
From the feds.
Yes.
It did not flow through the counties or the cities. It was directly related to transportation needs regionally.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
And it was based on our regular formula funds. That's how the
Correct.
formula came in, and we were able to utilize those 100% for operating.
Correct, but it wasn't money that we at the county sent to Lynx.
Correct. No.
As part of our ARPA and CARES.
So how much of the budget stabilization, so is there $0 in the budget stabilization fund that came from Seminole County?
None of it came from Seminole County from ARPA or CARES dollars. But what happened was.
What about money that's not ARPA or CARES
That's what I'm
dollars?
trying to explain.
That's,
For 3 years, we kept the funding partner rates the same, and we offset using, running the organization with a lot of CARES and ARPA dollars. And when whatever surplus was left over went into a reserve that we labeled budget stabilization funds. Our reserve policy allows for two different sides. We have the traditional reserve, and everything above the traditional reserve went into budget stabilization. Because we knew when those federal dollars ran out, we had to run on local dollars. The local counties weren't going to want to have enough of an increase immediately in the first year to go back to full funding. So it was all vetted through the Lynx board with many models that were provided with what the process and timeline would be, and was agreed upon a 5-year burnout of stabilization funds to gradually bring the counties back to full funding.
okay. Right-sizing the fleet. So when we talk about right-sizing here, we're talking about making smaller, but I have a feeling you're talking about making bigger.
Well,
No, you're making smaller.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It depends on the service area and the needs.
Okay, so I have become like a crazed woman. So when I see a Lynx bus, I'm like, there's a Lynx bus, how many people are on it? I've been driving people nuts with this. I actually chased down a Lynx bus at the Seminole State parking lot the other day. The driver was delightful. He was like, who is this crazy woman running? I have witnesses. Who is this crazy woman? Yeah. So we are running very, very large buses for a very, very few number of riders on the routes that I have been able to observe. And so what is the process for that determination, for determining the right sizing of the vehicle to the route? Because I don't think we're there on some of the routes that I'm seeing.
And you're correct. After you and I have spoken, Commissioner, we have been, and specifically right outside this building, we have been looking at that, and so vetting those changes with staff is what are the long-term plans for Seminole County. In 2019, 2020, we came up with a Seminole County-specific transit plan, as we did with Orange County and Osceola. If it's time to revisit that, we'll be happy to sit and have a workshop and, what does the new transit system look like in Seminole County?
And I'm not sure that in 2019, we needed a full bus for some of these routes either. So I guess I just need to understand, and I think the county manager especially needs to understand, what is the role of our staff and how in the weeds do we need to be to give direction to Lynx on what we want? Or does Lynx say, here are all of the opportunities and efficiencies that we see for you, and here is what we recommend to right-size your routes? Which of those should we be doing?
It's an iterative process. You all set the vision for the county, and we can come in with recommendations. There has been discussion about Volusia's new on-demand with the smaller vehicles. If that is something we want to explore, we're more than happy to do that.
Okay. On the 2025 operating budget expenses, salaries, wages, and fringe benefits. I know that you probably have a lot of different groups rolled up into that number, but union negotiations play I would imagine, a significant role in this number.
Yes.
Who sits on our negotiating team for Lynx?
So the Lynx team has outside counsel that leads the negotiations along with Mr. Antman as CFO, our COO, in-house counsel, HR. We vet the benefits. Those contracts are then brought to the board for ratification.
Does the board get an opportunity to give direction
Yes.
to staff on
Yeah.
what those negotiations should look like?
There, depending on the discussion, there can be an executive session to, especially if it is going to be a significant cost increase. So, and
Yeah.
the term sheets are weighed in.
Okay. As with all of our organizations, our value, the money that we are spending mostly is in our people, and certainly those drivers and employees are carrying very precious cargo. But that's also something that I think this board keeps a very close eye on as well. So when we talked about the 2025 capital budget funding, and Lenny, you made verbal mention of the Southern Operations Center in this, in the following page, the 2025 capital budget expenses under facilities. That was where you mentioned that the $17 million for the Southern Operations Center for property. The process for selecting that property in a very Reader's Digest version, have you found the property, and what was the process for determining what that would be?
So we engaged a consultant to look at the southern service area, which included South Orange, Osceola County. I believe over 120 properties were narrowed down. Part of the process with FTA is that we cannot engage in negotiations until it is cleared environmentally. And that is the process we are going through now. It's the same process that we did with the currently under construction Pine Hills. So if we get cleared from FTA to be able to enter into negotiations, we will go to the board and ask for authorization to enter into negotiations. If the FTA doesn't clear it, there's no reason in having the conversation.
So my question was actually back further. When did the board give, how did this property get selected, and how did we choose to spend money to go to that, I feel like I'm missing a gap. I wasn't there, so it may have happened when Commissioner Herr was there. I don't know.
So the Southern Operations Base has been in the long-range plans, both at Lynx and Metro Plan, for many years, including it was just presented as in the prioritized project list at Metro Plan last Wednesday, a Southern Operations Base as well as a new operations, or a Northern Operations Base. So regardless of the merits of those, moving forward with that, we are currently leasing space at the city of Kissimmee to store 45, 47 buses down there. We are capped. So the process is there available land? And that process started 3 years ago to start reviewing available land for a Southern Operations Base. So whereas, Commissioner, you are looking for a direct vote in moving forward, the Southern Operations Base has been adopted as part of the budget for the last 5 years as a line item.
Okay. And just, I know my colleagues have more questions.
No, keep going. You're doing fine.
No, well, thank you. I was at the Oversight Committee meeting where the slide was shown about the projection of the funding partner responsibility out into 2028 or 2030 or whatever it was, and I had a heart attack because I'm trying to figure out how we rein this in. Those projections aren't sustainable for us. And I don't mean to speak for my colleagues, but I know what our budget looks like, and I'm just trying very hard to figure out how we can keep this reasonable with the current funding partner agreement that we have, because there are no caps. The Sunrail agreement that we just all approved had caps. I think there was a prior formula that included caps, and then for whatever reason, over the course of the last however many years, we said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to, pay whatever. I don't feel like financially this county can continue to afford to just pay whatever our portion of the deficit is. We've got to start to see something change, and whether that's right-sizing the fleet or cutting routes or whatever it is, I'm nervous about the future. So this is not personal, this is me. This is very much a numbers, holy shit, how are we going to afford this?
What did you say?
I said holy shit.
Okay. Just want to make sure
I
I
think
heard
I
that.
said it. I think I actually said that. I'm being transparent in what I said.
Perfect. I love directness. Commissioner,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your being here today, but I just received this about a day or so ago, and I really didn't have time yet to go through it with my staff. So next time we do this, I'd appreciate at least a couple more days so I can go with the staff to get into the weeds, or maybe get a presentation by Links in my office. That would all be advantageous to reduce the amount of time that we're spending here. That being said, I'm a little perplexed because I can go back to 2014, where we talked about Oxford Road and the Operations Center, and there was commitment from Links to do something. What happened? Can someone make a statement?
I know a little bit about that, but
I
I'll
mean,
wait till my
I'm
turn.
still waiting for Links to move forward with the Oxford Road, and now I'm hearing that you're moving forward with Osceola County, or South Orange County. What happened to South Seminole?
Commissioner, no excuses, but 2014 was prior to my time.
I understand that, but you're Links.
Yeah, it's still Links, and you're correct. And again, as I stated previously.
So I'm correct, so let's
Yes.
put the correctness on the side. How do we lose status that we're now looking at South Orange, Osceola County? That being said, we'll put a pin in that because that's an issue. I'll talk to our county manager about that. I think we all will at some point. And I really think that our county manager needs to figure out how to speak to whoever they need to speak to move us, Oxford Road back into the game. I don't know what happened, but something happened. Because we're going to be starting construction on Oxford Road, and if you think I'm going to be paying to rebuild it for Links, you're sadly mistaken. Just county manager. I would like for you to discuss with us how you've done efficiencies and different types of processes and what those were to reduce the cost that we're seeing here today.
Specific to service delivery,
The budget.
the overall budget.
How have you reduced the overall expenditure of Links over this past year so that we, the citizens of Seminole County, are looking at a more cost-effective system?
I think the first and foremost is that we have put a priority on hiring bus operators. I think if you look at this time last year, we were down 75 to 100 bus operators, which was a significant increase in the overtime. We've entered into a partnership with Valencia College to train do our CDL training. The pass rate is 100%, and it's 99.9 because there was an equipment failure on one of the buses. It was not the driver's fault, but we are also seeing some longevity with that training versus the training that we were doing in-house. We tried hiring incentives that didn't move the needle.
No, but I'm asking, how you been reduced in cost?
Overtime versus
It's overtime.
salary.
And if I could add
Salary
in,
is lower than the overtime. I was
you.
there when that went,
Thank you.
that effort took place.
other than the wage increases that are primarily contractually agreed to and contracts for paratransit and things like that, Link staff work very hard to contain and/or reduce expenses. When we look at it, fuel in the budget year over year is flat. There's no increase in fuel whatsoever, and we know how fuel is going. We worked very hard there. Materials and supplies, which includes the maintenance of our facilities and all of our vehicles, year over year is a $300,000 increase, and that's on a $10 million line item. And that $300,000 increase is a one-time increase because we have to renovate the parking lot where we have a lot of cracks. We have to have a crew come in and seal it and whatnot. The actual maintenance of the vehicles in the facilities is flat year over year. Our leases and whatnot, the expense, you can see a reduction of $470,000. Other than the areas that are beyond their control, casualty and liability, yes, there's an increase of $300,000. That's the cost of an insurance policy that we have no control over.
Okay, thank you. I would like to get some more information, because I know there are some cities around the country. Phoenix has one that's actually using technology to reduce their cost. And I'd like to get some information from our staff, so this doesn't turn into another Oxford Road, where, Robobus, Uber, there's a lot of different ways to offset this. By increasing our budget for links, and we're having buses, as the commissioner stated, that have very little ridership in them,
Yes, very.
very little. I'm just,
One,
okay, I
or a
mean,
half a person.
buy the person an Uber ticket. I mean, it'd be a lot cheaper than having a bus that's X amount of feet long. I'd like to look at that, because our budget's only increased by 8% this year. Is that correct, Mr. Jex?
Our
Our revenue.
total revenue budget increased by 5.6% in the
5%.
general fund.
Okay, well, then I think that's the number we should be looking at links with, whatever that percentage is. And if we got to go below that, that's fine. But as the commissioner said, this is non-sustainable, and we need to have our staff look at this to get into the numbers. Maybe we need to be looking at the funding model. When was the last time the funding model was reviewed so that it has parity across the counties? When is the last time we looked at the mileage per bus, and to make sure we're getting the right amount of lane mileage per bus and ridership per bus? There's a lot of aspects of this that we should be looking at, and of course, the amount of people riding in the bus. If there's only one person riding in the bus, we shouldn't have a commissioner pointing that out. I'm sorry. That should be someone else pointing
I
out.
met some really nice people, though.
I'm sure you did. But we're only having this conversation once a year, or maybe twice a year. We need to get very serious with this. By increasing it this much, I, for one, will not be involved in that. I'll be making a motion, or part of the motion, to deny that funding increase. This is non-sustainable, and we need to be looking at this in other technologies, other ways to do it. This is ludicrous. End of my.
Commissioner
Thank you,
Hur.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to pick up, so this is going to seem rather random because it's a random list, and I'm going to start from the bottom. Funding model. The funding model, as I understand it, is driven by trips,
The funding model is driven by service hours.
service hours. So if we want to cut the bus that has one person on it, we do it and our number goes down.
Correct.
So if we deny the budget request and we say, this is how much we're going to give you, then you're going to come back and say, then this is what your bus routes will look like. Is that
Correct.
accurate? Okay, so that's doable. With regard to Oxford Road, I can only tell you that in the year that I sat on on your board, I never heard the word Oxford Road come up. I do think it was before your time. It wasn't transitioned to me as a board member sitting on that board, that this was a request of this board prior to me getting here. I arrived here in 2020, November, and served 1 year. That was the year before Commissioner Lockhart. So I would tell you that some of that I believe, is how we transition board members onto these boards, which there's not a handoff, there's not a, these are the 5 issues that we should be working, these are the whatever, and we've had turnover in staff on those committees. So I'll just throw that out there that we need to figure that out. I think on the side of links, though, I would tell you that, now I'll go to 100,000 feet. I have never felt that I had a voice in that room. Let's just call that like it is. We are the little potato that sits at the table that says, nice to have you here, and by the way, here's your pink shirt. That's not you, that's just by virtue of the makeup of the board. We sit at the will of the mayors and now Osceola County because they have a bigger investment in the organization and they have, quite honestly, a bigger need. And so I think we have to acknowledge and accept that that's our place in the universe and figure out what it is we do with that, which may be something different, something entirely different. If you right size, so now I am going rather randomly, but if you right size the 60-foot bus that's carrying the one person to a van, does that change the funding model? Am I paying less for the van than I did for the bus?
It depends on how you provide the service. Is it geographical, or is it running this? If it's running the same route, no, the cost of the route is the driver in the seat for the service hour.
Okay, I just want to point that out, that when we switch all of this to vans, that doesn't lower our funding rate. I thought that was the answer, so. So that's probably not a solution. I would tell you that that model of funding drives the lack of willingness, not willingness, lack of need to look at doing it more efficiently, because I realize that the driver and the cost associated with it are the majority of the cost, but you cannot tell me that running one of those big buses costs the same as running a small van. Could be wrong, because some of them are electric, I don't know, but I bet you all in it's not. So I just want to point that out. What was the increase that was given to staff in terms of salary? It looks like I did rough math, 7%, but that's probably not right.
In the contracts, it's 3% or 4%.
It's 4%. One of the things that drives that, though, is that, well, there's benefits and pensions and whatnot to go up on top of it. So you have to look at the cost of the pension expense. But also the drivers and the mechanics have what they call a step function. They come in at, say, 78% of top wage, and every year they go up 4 or 5%. And so you might have a 4% increase, but your junior employees are also getting the step. And so as senior employees leave, you're losing people at the top, but as people rise up, so once you're there 5 years, you're at the top of scale, so you get just the 4%. But the folks that are coming in that are junior, they're coming in at 3/4 of the full salary, so their increase might be 7 or 8% that year.
I really wish I hadn't asked that question, given the number of CDL drivers that we have in this organization. So I just want to give a shout out to all of our employees that have CDL license of how much we love you and how horrible it would be to be driving around Orlando in a bus. We want you right here in Seminole County. That sounds like a heck of a deal. The budget stabilization, I think you said this, so there's a couple places I'm going to own that you probably said it, and I was still ruminating on the fact that you said before that. How much is left? Are we down to the last 2 years?
Well, 27 will be the last year.
27 will be the last
Right,
year,
and if I
so
could just
25
add
is
in,
what we're projecting.
Part of the
and-
reason the percentage increases so much is because we're getting back to the point where we'll be able to fully fund. We're funding the actual increase plus the increase that wasn't acknowledged for 3 years at the beginning of COVID.
Right.
And so once we get past COVID, we've done models, and Tim has seen the models. We get down to, say, an average of somewhere between 5 and 7% increase. It's a lot lower than what this is. This is making up for the years when there were no increase, so that we could be considerate to the counties that were funding us, because we did have the ARPA and CARES dollars available.
So we're going to have this one and then 2 more behind it
Yes.
at this level?
No.
Yes.
No.
That's what he's saying.
Well, it's not. It's declining.
Yeah, it's declining.
It's declining.
the amount of stabilization dollars we're using is declining. The
Right.
increase is flat, consistent.
He flatlined the increase with the math, so.
Got it.
So.
So that way, each year, you need less and less stabilization funds because there's
Right.
not that many dollars available.
Right.
So at the beginning, we were using $32 million a year. In the last year, we'll use maybe $3 million.
So we're getting 3 years of, this is roughly a 20% increase. 3 years, we're going to get a 60% bump to end up at 5% per year.
Well,
At some point, right, at some point, I've doubled twice in that.
No, it's 15.5% a year, and the average will be somewhere between 5 to 7.
But I take the 15 and a half times 3. I have 3 more years. I have this one plus 2 more. And I don't know, I did the math from 11.7 to 14.0, and I got a 19%
There were
increase.
two things that happened. Like I said, there were 3 years we were at the same rate, there was no increase. But then also, when COVID was first over, we were having a really hard time hiring drivers. As Tiffany mentioned, we were 75 drivers short at the beginning of the year. The market was out there for labor. I mean, there were huge increases across the board. We had to come up to the rate that the market was demanding for bus drivers. I mean, we compete with Greyhound, we compete with Disney, we compete with Mayors, we compete with everybody. And so there was a couple of years where there were unusually higher increases. There were, market rate adjustments for the drivers that compensated a larger increase than normal. So that ate up some of that increase also.
And I will say that we did have an executive session in the year that I was there, and we were brought into consideration for the contracts, et cetera, so I do recall that happening. I also, however, do not recall, other than a budget session, the talking about the Southern Operations Center and any further discussion. It is just simply, it may happen in the other meetings. I never attended the oversight meeting. We had staff that attended the oversight meeting. They did brief me about it. It just wasn't a discussion item. So it's just sort of happening in the background, quite honestly, probably being driven by the advocates for Osceola County, which is a great thing. So we have a couple of choices, as I see it. We either jump into this mix full bore and we start advocating and drive everybody's cost up as well, which I hear is maybe some of the desire. At the same time that we're doing that, though, I would highly recommend that we figure out, is there a more efficient way for us to do this? I don't know whether that's on our own or with you, quite honestly. I think it would probably be with you, because you know how to do this and we don't. I'll just start with that. And quite honestly, I'm not 100% certain that the service that we're providing to our citizens is as robust as it is in the other counties, and we still can't afford it. So, but the transportation need is different, and we have to acknowledge that. So I think it's all bets on here in terms of how we analyze this. And it is unfortunate that we're here and rather surprised, but we're here and rather surprised. That's just the reality. And that's it.
Anyone have to follow up anything before I try to close out?
Close it.
Well, the only thing that I would say is, I do think that a work session on this topic would be important.
Sure.
Because I do think, while I hear people saying, well, what about the Oxford Road? Frankly, I don't know that I want to invest any more into a system that is an old school urban methodology of moving people around a county, when what we have always prided ourselves on in Seminole County is being a little more forward-thinking and being, and gosh, that's going to sound horrible, and I'm not slamming you for not being forward-thinking, but just moving a bus from point A to point B on a particular schedule. I mean, people are used to being able to pick up a phone on their phone and have an app and get to wherever they want to go directly there, and in some cases for less money. And so I'm just looking at this $14 million a year and how we could utilize that, whether it's, again, with links or without links, to deliver transportation services to the folks in our community who need it. Our team has estimated that we have approximately 3,500 to 4,000 unique individuals in Seminole County who utilize these services. $14 million for, we'll be generous, 4,000 people is a lot of money. And as much as I understand regionalism and being a team player, I was elected
to do the right thing for the taxpayers of Seminole County and Seminole County citizens. And I don't know that this system, and in continuing to invest more in this system with a brick and mortar structure, is the direction that I would want to go. So I am certainly looking forward to having more detailed, robust conversations and understanding where our staff is in helping to determine these routes and how they're, I'm in the dark on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Delory.
I'll make it quick. Commissioner, you're absolutely right. To put more money into old technology may not be the best asset or the best direction that we should be taking for this county, spending the public's money. But at the same token, we need to be looking at this because this is non-sustainable, and I know you said that, okay? And at the same token, we just can't go to get along just with the region. And that's why I can't support this budget as it's stated right now. And I'm hoping that we can actually have a work session, ask our staff to bring things back, look at what is the next step and how to approach this with links or without links. And I think that's what we should be doing. Do we go to Volusia County? Don't know. And that's just an option. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but the numbers don't lie. And as the commissioner stated, with the small amount of people that's using this system, get them all Uber tickets.
Okay.
What is our time frame? No, like, and when we talk about this, what is the time frame for us needing to make a decision to either cut routes or modify? How quickly do we need to do this?
Well, I think that's maybe a question for links. When do you need an answer back from
So
us?
the soonest that we can make any service changes would be December. So with this budget, in fact, as we have gone through the budget process, we have been notified by Osceola County that they are cutting some of their services. So, and we have already built that into their portion of it. So sooner is always better, but the first chance that we will have to make that change is in December.
And that is because?
Because of the service changes that we have to do, the process, there's a public involvement process that has to have public hearings.
I just wanted you to be able to say that out loud, that it
Yes,
wasn't just because you won't, it's because you can't.
No, thank you.
Yes.
And so it is a prescribed process that we have to follow.
All right, I'll try to bring this in for landing. If you can go to page 120 of the presentation, please.
What's the title of the slide?
Funding partner operating share. It's at the bottom right-hand corner. It's 118, 119. Should be the next one.
It's a pie chart.
120. I guess they've got them out of order. It's a pie chart.
Yeah, keep going.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's not 120, it's 120 on mine. I'm not sure why it is. So maybe y'all got a different presentation than I did. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. I arrived here in 2018. During my first budget session, I met with Mr. Jackson, said, this is the most insane operating cost inefficiency that I've ever seen as a businessman. During that first budget hearing session, commissioner that's no longer here, and at least one that is here, reminded me, well, Commissioner, it's you're not going to make money on this. It is what it is. You've got to provide transportation for those in your community, and we get it's not cost effective. But this really tells the story. And this tells the story, it's not the tail wagging the dog, it's the dog wagging the tail. To Commissioner Herr's point, we are a flea riding on the dog, and we're giving our fair share of what is believed to be a partnership throughout the region. And I'm all about being a good partner, but I will tell you, at $14 million, and once the stabilization funding goes away, I would argue that this county could probably purchase a very small fleet of vehicles, staff it, and perform a function that's probably much more efficient for those people that want to ride and much more efficient for our budget process. Or contract with a third party to do those paratransit type things and other mobilities. I've looked at the numbers of ridership. It just doesn't make sense. I understand we have to provide and need to provide transportation for those in our community that otherwise have no mobility or way to get around. But at $14 million, and arguably, if I run some quick numbers, 2027, it's going to be millions of dollars more, and in fact, it looks like it'll be more expensive than Sunrail, which is a whole nother debacle, in my opinion. I'm out. I'm done agreeing to fund this model completely. I've gone along to get along since I arrived here in 2018, believing this was historically the best method, the best model, against my own business principles and financial acumen. But I think staff does need to take this up, have a very candid look and discussion as to where we go from here. Just at a high level, I would argue for the ridership, you might be able to call Uber and purchase $5 million worth of gift cards and accomplish what we're doing here and contract with a paratransit company or one of our ambulance companies we already have a relationship with to move those that are unable or need additional assistance to move to doctors and so forth like that. I'm not going to beat that horse as far as I'm concerned. It's been dead since the day I've gotten here, and I've gone along with what the recommendations of my fellow commissioners and desire of my fellow commissioners. Oxford Road, what I can tell you about that, it started out as a tri-party agreement between the property owners at the High Line, Seminole County, and Lynx. Very early on, it was identified that the SunTrust building or the SunTrust property at the intersection of 436 and whatever the other road was there was identified initially to be a location, to be a tri-party agreement, that it would be partially purchased by the Oxford Road property owner. In exchange, under Link's recommendations, they would man it. Seminole County would pay to build the station, which I think was somewhere around $4 million. The SunTrust property then went off the market, and then, of course, Oxford Road negotiations did what they did and went right, left, all over the map. By that time, it sort of fell off everybody's radar. Then there was a pickup of that. There was discussion between the High Line property owner and the Lowe's property owner to purchase a section of the Lowe's parking lot along Oxford in order to purchase a place to build a station. But then, of course, the whole Oxford Road thing, as far as development in that corridor, has sort of fallen off the map. I know we're moving forward with Oxford Road, but it doesn't, at this point, include the development that was promised by the third party of this agreement. So that's just a little background on what happened there, and I think that my question at that time was, I think the number was 3.5, almost $4 million. Why would the county be building a whole new station there? And I was looking for another path, but I concur with a lot of things that have been said, but I think we really, this is a candid conversation that we ultimately have to have. I think if the can's been kicked down the road long enough, I think we've got to have a work session and look at some viable options, and I think that's what I'm hearing, consensus from the commissioners. So we'll move on from there. You got your direction?
Yes.
Thank you both for being here today. We sincerely appreciate it very much, and hope the rest of your week as well.
Chairman, could we
Okay.
take a 5-minute recess?
You want to take 5 minutes? Well, if you're going to take 5, let's take 10.
You can't smoke a cigarette in 5.
I can't walk. a cigarette according to somebody. I'm supposed to go have one, but I didn't do that.
You should not have had one.
Okay, thank you.
So next up, we have the Florida Department of Health, Dr. Ethan Johnson. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm here with Anna Scuteri and Tom Kellis, Assistant Director and our Business Manager. I am the new person as well as the last person on the agenda, so I'll try to be thorough and brief. All right, so for today's presentation, even though we're talking about the health department's budget and how you all support us, I did organize it around our core functions, the communicable disease control, environmental public health, community health, and preparedness are the core functions that county health departments in Florida are statutorily required to perform. And you guys' contribution to our direct services really helps secure these services in the community, and Seminole County government staff also assist with these services through partnership in some type of way under each service. So our budget year ends officially June 30th. So this was our projected revenue for the current fiscal year at the time this was submitted, which was probably toward the beginning of last month. The majority of our funding comes down to state and federal, and this accounts for almost, the state and federal funding accounts for almost 70% of our overall operating budget. This outlines the projected revenue for 24-25 fiscal year, with most of the decrease coming from the state and federal funds category. That decrease is mostly attributed to special funding that we received for our STD, disease intervention specialists, regional minority health work that we were funded at one point in time to perform, and then the last of the COVID-19 funding. And this is just a better representation of the overall budget. So this is the 3-year projected and actual from 22 to 25. The variation in the projected revenue is slightly misleading because of how some of our funding from special projects and federal programs has historically been staggered or delayed. Another thing that I think is probably most noticeable here is that deficit marked in 24-25. That is an overestimate, and I apologize for that. The issue there, at the time this was submitted, we had loaded the 3% increases for staff that was approved by the state legislator for all state employees as an expense. That had not yet been loaded in as revenue from the state. Also, we projected being fully staffed, which we currently are fully staffed, but we know we will not be by the end. So that deficit will be significantly lower than what's presented there for 24-25. And then something else that I would note as a part of my performance expectations by the state, our cash balance or trust fund percentage can't be any lower than 3% or any higher than 10%. So it's still in that range. So the contributions from Seminole County government, we're requesting continued funding at this level. In terms of the direct services, as I mentioned, they're essential to supporting the core functions of the health department, and I have a few slides after this that gets into more detail of what those direct services are, but the majority of it being communicable disease control and some of the clinical services that are being provided. The diabetes prevention program that serves individuals who are at risk for type 2 diabetes, as well as individuals with diabetes who are having trouble managing. It is an 8-hour course that we have an individual health educator who is actually performing them. We have 44 participants in the program, each of which with individualized 8-hour sessions. And then additionally, we are also doing blood glucose and A1C testing in the community. So there's about 1,175 residents who received that service, and then of course referrals afterwards. The school dental sealant service program, we provided 350 oral screenings to and provided 910 sealants. That's performed by one dental hygienist, so she is working, and she's also in the clinic as well at the health department, the dental clinic. I have a slide coming up where we'll outline some of the work that's happening with the mobile unit specifically. And then for our community nutrition program that's also managed by one health educator, she did 79 nutrition and physical activity courses that served over 1,000 Seminole County residents, both children and adults, in Seminole County government facilities, elementary schools, apartment complexes. And then in addition to that, this health educator also coordinates the health department's outreach efforts related to this. So she's coordinated the health department's participation in 73 other outreach events outside of the 79 nutrition and physical activity educational programs that she's hosted. So this slide highlights some of the more specific grants outside of what I've already outlined that comes from you all from the county. One, I won't go over this because it's a bit repetitive, but one of the things that I will highlight in 24-25 is the Closing the Gap grant. It's a state grant intended to address disparate health outcomes. It comes from the Office of Minority Health within the Department of Health. Over the past 6 months, we've used that funding to pilot 2 programs. One is Delivering a Doula Difference. The other is Cradle Seminole. Cradle Seminole is a nursing home visiting program meant to improve maternal-child health outcomes for individuals who are at an increased risk for adverse health outcomes. We have a registered nurse who will visit individuals on a biweekly basis from the end of their pregnancy all the way through the first 2 years with the toddler. Like I said, it's a pilot that's just started a few months back. And we currently have 4 mothers and their children enrolled. We are also currently seeking additional external funding to expand that, but so far, so good with that program. So we're excited to report back more on that. And then the other program I mentioned, Delivering a Doula Difference, is the same thing in terms of its intent to improve maternal-child health outcomes here in Seminole County. But we would like to get more certified doulas here in Seminole County who are also working with mothers who are at an increased risk for not so great outcomes in terms of pregnancy. And just for context, if you're not familiar with a doula, basically doulas are certified to be birthing and pregnancy coaches and advocates. And there's a lot of peer-reviewed literature that supports having a doula present during a pregnancy and afterwards improves health outcomes of both the mother and the child. So moving forward, as I mentioned, I wanted to focus on our core functions because really the cash contribution from the county that supports our core functions and direct services is really essential to protecting the health of Seminole County residents. One of our core functions is communicable disease control, which everyone is probably way more familiar with than they wanted to be after the last 5 years or so. In our epidemiology program, we investigate, link to care, and provide treatment for a number of infectious diseases. We completed close to 1,500 epidemiologic investigations since July 2023, each with varying levels of work associated with them. Of those 1,500 investigations, that was inclusive of 6 travel-associated mosquito-borne illnesses. To my knowledge, there's never been a locally acquired mosquito-borne illness in Seminole County. There are 8 infectious TB cases, as well as 1 measles case. And as another part of preventing the spread of infectious disease, we're also a site for the Federal Refugee Health Program. So we have provided 568 refugee health screenings, as well as numerous immunizations to those clients as well. And again, that's a federal program and federally funded. And then in terms of STD and HIV, these numbers are only for our Thursday free clinic day. And I wanted to highlight that because during the first 10 months of the current fiscal year, we saw 756 clients on the free testing day. Of those 756, 56 of them tested positive for sexually transmitted infection, and 46 tested positive for HIV, which of course is great because then those people are able to get into treatment. And on top of that, outside of free testing day, our staff did still investigate over 2,000 other STD cases that were reported. Environmental health services, that's another core function. Over the past 6 months, for the first time in probably a few years, we've been able to actually start catching up on some of the inspections and obligations for the department. That's largely attributed to us finally being able to be fully staffed, which today we're fully staffed, but also I just found out we got a resignation letter, or we'll be getting one from someone, so we won't be fully staffed probably in a couple weeks. But the fact that we've been fully staffed has really helped with us catching up on some of those environmental health obligations. I know the septic program continues to be a very difficult program to administer. I know my own background, my first job with the Department of Health was as an environmental health specialist. I did do septic inspections, food inspections, pretty much every program that we do, I've inspected or permitted. So I do know firsthand how difficult the program can be. However, our new permit turnaround is down to a day right now, which is good. So I know that we still get some calls, and there's still some folks, that need some assistance, but I'm happy in the direction that we're going there with EH. And from July 23 to April 24, we completed 2,255 inspections, investigations, and permits. So the mobile unit, which is funded this year through both the support of the county and the Department of Health's Office of Minority Health, from July 23 to April 24, the Mobile Health Services Unit conducted 202 outreaches or stops across the county and provided 8,250 services, which range from women's wellness exams and family planning services to immunizations and STD testing. Something else that we're working on, because I know that there are several mobile units in our community, which I think is great. But one of the things that we have been doing for some of those organizations that are also providing mobile services, we've been trying to coordinate with them. So one, we're not crossing paths at the same place, and also when possible, the services aren't duplicative. So a lot of times there are some mobile units where the services we offer actually complement what the other units are providing, if in fact we coordinate to be in the same spot on the same day. Everybody is familiar with the Women and Infants and Children's Program. It's a supplemental nutrition program. I wanted to highlight it because community health is a core function. WIC is one of the most heavily utilized programs. WIC is another program that has been understaffed here for a while, but we finally are fully staffed. Well, we have maybe one vacancy, I think, in WIC. So this past fiscal year, we were able to provide 67,500 individual services to 5,600 clients. And I think it's important to note that a lot of those food benefits received by our Seminole County WIC clients are then spent at the 48 WIC vendors here in Seminole County. Our school health program is also another major part of community health. We increased the number of students who have opted in for services, and that can be seen in the increases in the number of services that were actually provided to the students. Also, our positive youth development workshops are coordinated by the school health program and designed to strengthen and encourage healthy behaviors in young people. As of May 15th, the school health team completed 114 youth meetings at 8 different sites. The fall prevention program, I wanted to highlight that too because I've seen a few other fall prevention programs. One thing that's great about this one is that it's not funded by local or state funds. The National Association of City and County Health Officials funds our fall prevention program, and similar to other programs, it aims to reduce the incidence of falls for older adults via home visiting as well as community education courses. But I think also what makes the program a little different is that we also educate older adults on some of the social determinants of health and maybe some non-traditional lifestyle factors that may impact older adult health. So this year we did 47 home visits and provided 14 educational presentations to senior living facilities. And I think the last program that I highlighted that I just bring in front of you was something that we just did. It just ended a couple weeks ago. Is our health literacy program. We had a few staff who noticed that our Spanish-speaking clients were struggling even with the translated documents. And so we know if you're coming to the health department and having difficulty being able to understand that, we know that if you go to your primary care doctor or your encountering the system in any other way, you're going to struggle. So we partnered with Seminole State College to provide ESOL classes to adult learners at the health department. One of the things that with our contacts at Seminole, they're saying it's really difficult to get adults, especially if they're older adults, to come to a college campus if they've never been to one before. So it was really a great opportunity, a great partnership. We had about 18 adult learners. We just finished our first cohort 2-3 weeks ago. We gave them certificates. It was very well received. We actually had one couple who was Creole, Haitian Creole speaking. So that was just really great. So we're currently recruiting for the next cohort of that as well. And I highlight it only because I wanted to make sure that I included some of the more non-traditional things that not only your financial contribution, but your in-kind contributions help support at the health department. So it's just been really exciting. So other than that, of course, we have other programs indirectly supported by you all, our breast and cervical cancer program, even the sexual assault nurse examiner program. There's a lot, as you know, happening at your health department. And I guess I'll just say personally, I just feel really grateful for the opportunity. It's been a whirlwind since I've been here in August of learning, engaging, meeting people. But I immediately, you all told me this when I came here, but within the first weeks, I knew that Seminole County is a very special place. And not to say anything bad about any other counties in Florida, but it's very different here in terms of everyone's willingness to work. And one thing I'll say about my own staff, most recently we had the opportunity to host Revive Awareness Day at the health department, and we had a lot of officials and leaders coming locally, and it was just amazing to me how the health department staff, as well as some of the county staff who came to assist, were just searching for things to do, looking for things, looking for ways to, assist. And I just think that's a very different spirit, and I never want to take that for granted because I know that's different here in Seminole. But other than that, that's all we have today.
Thank you, Doctor, very much. And if we could, can you go to page, I think it's 5 of that, where it says communicable disease control? And I'm going to ask this for the record because I'm going to tell you, I know my phone in my office is going to ring or emails are going to come in, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners. Refugee Health Services, when it says Refugee Health Comprehensive Health Screening within 90 days of arrival, is this related to the Haiti?
Not at all.
Okay, tell us about that.
Yes, so the Refugee Health Program, that's a federal program. Those dollars come from the federal government. It's meant to screen people who have been granted refugee status. Once they come into the country, they have 90 days to get that screening at one of the sites that provide the screening. We're one of the many sites funded to provide it, and if they don't get that screening, then they risk jeopardizing their refugee status. And the intent behind it, the reason for, not every health department puts it under disease control. Our rationale for having it in disease control is because we really see it, although it is a service to the individual, we see it as a service to the community, because if they are coming with some type of communicable disease, we want them to be aware, and we want the community to be aware.
Understood. I just want to make sure that we're clear. This is not folks from the southern border that all of a sudden ended up here.
Not at all.
I just want to make
Not
sure
at
we
all.
had that for the record. Because those calls are going to come.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Commissioner Hurd and work our way down the dais.
So I just want to make sure I understand what the ask is, Mr. Jacks. Is this a flat budget request?
Their budget request is flat for fiscal year
Okay.
25.
I just thought we should get that out on the record, and you should own that. So you win the prize for the day, and I suspect for the budgeting cycle, to be honest with you, so that's fabulous. I'll just comment on one of the programs. Those language classes that you're hosting in your setting, that is genius. Those folks are not going to go to a college campus. They're just not going to go to a college campus, but the universe of going to the medical clinic is just like home, right? I've been a part of an organization that built out entire healthcare delivery system around that methodology. And the social side of that is a big deal. That's a game changer for the healthcare for those individuals that are successful in going through that. I happen to be in the business of I don't do the translation, but of having to translate benefit guides, which talk about how you access your health care in the traditional system. And we never get it right. We can't get it right because the words don't exist. And so that, hats off to you. That's phenomenal. And the number of people going through it is fabulous. I hope that grows like crazy.
We were hoping to have maybe 5 or 6 people show up. So that first Wednesday night when they came, our staff, and I have to say that, the credit really goes to our staff. We have a maintenance person, we have a supervisor who understand the experience of being Spanish speaking, coming to the country, have to learn English, and they were really emphatic about, please support this. We had, and of course, Seminole College.
Yeah, it's fabulous, because the healthcare delivery system is hard to navigate when you speak the language, and now not speaking the language, the written material is all that gets communicated. You leave that, you're handed a document, that's all you're not getting a discussion. And if you are, you're not getting it at a point when you can absorb it. So really, really great program, thank you. And thank you for the 0 budget increase.
Commissioner Glary, any comments?
It's well presented, well done. I know we've all said this individually to you, but welcome to the county.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Great work. I'm curious how we're collaborating with our community paramedicine program with some of the services that you're delivering, or are we?
So we get referrals from them. I know there's a department within the Seminole County that has 2 caseworkers, and they communicate with our community health workers, so we collaborate. When they cannot go, we go.
Okay. I think it would be interesting to know what type, not who specifically, but what types of clients we're seeing, who is getting the referrals, what that synergy is like, because we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, and if there is an expertise in one area or another that we know that, the health department is the go-to for these, and that may all be happening behind the scenes, we just, we don't know about it, but.
It is happening. We have meetings with them every quarter.
Oh, okay. Fantastic.
And I believe Chief Kinley's first tomorrow, Mr. Jex, is that right? Fire?
That's correct.
So I'll make sure he's prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm not grilling you on it. I'm just, it's not like you're driving a 40-foot long bus around town with one person on it.
With one passenger on it?
But the driver said, I said, how many people are on the bus? And he said, 1. But he had to look back. It was cute. And then he goes, oh, no, wait, 2. Me. It was darling. Talking about environmental health, that has been, as you know, a challenge. Hiring employees for one thing, and then the handoff and, again, the synergy with code enforcement. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that's working?
Sure. A little bit, which I won't go into too much detail about, but I'm open to giving you as much information as I have. So part of the thing that's happening now at the state level is that in 2019, because of the Clean Water Act, a part of that is the transfer of the septic program to the Department of Environmental Protection. With that transfer, it's a phased approach. Seminole County could happen this time next year or the year after, but no later than July 1, 26. Because of that, that has complicated at least whose role is what. And so in terms of enforcement and in terms of how we work with code enforcement, which it seems like it has been, at least the last few that I've talked with you about and then with staff, it's worked out well. I think the problem is that the legal authority now lies with DEP. However, me as the health officer, I am supposed to sign off on the abatement letters basically that are being sent, which I don't really understand that, but that is the current makeshift kind of response until it is fully transitioned. I will say locally, I think one of just my priorities when I'm talking to my staff in environmental health is that, staffing constraints happens, mistakes happen, but I just want to I try to reiterate that, being customer focused should be the priority. So even if we can't do something or did something incorrectly or maybe something fell through the cracks, make sure we follow up call that person and at least go all the way out to what we can do. And I do think, at least from my perspective, the few incidents that I've seen, we've come back and kind of tried to follow up as much as possible. And a few of those circumstances have been abated by now. Some of the ones that I know have been like on the radar for a while and they just refuse to, a few of those have been addressed. So I think that has been working well.
Great, all right. Well, your can-do attitude and customer service focus, I think, is what's absolutely, this is the result of your leadership, and we just are so thrilled to have you here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Constantine.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson, it is wonderful to have you here, and certainly we welcome staff being here, too. Congratulations, I guess, on your budget. Just a statement, since you started in the Department of Health with the septic tank program, God love you. But I can just tell, you know this, DEP kicking and screaming did not want it, and Department of Health was more than happy to turn it over to them.
I'm sure.
But it went back a long, long ways from the fact that they were worried about effluent going down the streets, and now it's clean water. The question I wanted to ask you, your predecessor had a program that I think a lot of people had told me was fairly successful. I didn't see anything on here. Maybe times have changed, but it was in food deserts. They were having programs where, they were having food opportunities and fresh food and everything from there. Are you still doing those things, or is that something that?
Well, and I'll let Anna speak in a second. I know for us, one of the big things that our staff volunteer with is we partner with you all in the Sharing Center for our food pantry that's at the health department. We actually have moved to it being every other Wednesday. It was every Wednesday, but the need was so apparent, or is apparent, and we just did not have the food. So that's, I would say, from my perspective, that's one of the biggest ways that we're involved is through the food pantry. And then also one thing that I would note in terms of the utilization of the food pantry, from our observations, these are actually people in need as well. It's not people coming because they heard it was free groceries at
Free
Health.
food.
Right? Yeah. No, because it's not convenient, so.
Right.
But-
So you're coordinating then with not-for-profits in the area and doing that?
Yeah, and I think,
that's great.
did we have a PACH project that focused on nutrition?
Not
Or, I
this
mean,
time.
food deserts?
Not this time, but a year ago.
Right, so you can,
Sure. So we did have a PACH project and with Goldsboro. And at that time, we came out with a farmer's market. We tested it for about 3 years, but it wasn't going well. And they decided not to keep going with it because it was more like a flea market rather than, it didn't serve the purpose. But we invite the people from Goldsboro to come to our food pantry. And, we're working with the Sharing Center to see if we can increase the dollars so that we can serve the community every week instead of every other week at
Well,
this
it makes
time.
sense that you're putting it in a place where people are already used to going, as opposed to trying to start your own thing. And like you said, I did not know it turned into a flea market, but you could certainly see that that would have the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Anything else? Seeing none? Dr. Johnson, thank you very much for your acute concentration on filling some big shoes that preceded you and carrying that torch forward. It's great to see the focus on the community, and we sincerely appreciate it very much, you and your staff. Thank you for being here.
thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. That concludes our budget work session. I will go to the county manager. Have we had any further communication with the supervisor of elections on when he can come or can't come, or
Yes.
any
so
communication at all?
I had my office contact him when the afternoon session started at 1. His staff said he is not available next week, so we gave him, if he could come tomorrow or at our meeting next week. He's out next week, and he would let us know either way if he's available tomorrow. And that's the last communication I got about 1 o'clock.
And you've not heard whether he's available tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
It says that he will let us know one way or the other, and that comes from his chief of staff.
Okay.
So I have not heard as of yet.
What would the board like to do? You want to wait till tomorrow?
Yeah.
We've got a pretty full day tomorrow, so we may go much longer, depending on how deep we get in with our directors and their budgets. So go ahead, Commissioner Lockhart.
Well, I just think, he's either available tomorrow or he isn't. And we have a full schedule tomorrow. I do not want to bump any of our directors. Those are our internal departments. They've spent a lot of time. And so if he is available tomorrow, it will have to be at a time that's not bumping one of our departments.
Does it make sense to ask, does it make sense to take a 5 or 10-minute break and see if you can call his chief of staff? And I mean, it's pretty late in the afternoon now, it's 3:30.
So-
And see if we can get a commitment for tomorrow or not?
Before we do that, can I just weigh in that we're not starting tomorrow until 9:30? So I certainly would be happy to be here at 7 o'clock in the morning if he can
Oh,
make
no.
7.
I can't do that.
No.
No?
Oh, it's not noticed.
Okay.
Damn it. Okay. Well,
Oh, yeah, it's a
Take it
notice
back.
issue.
It's definitely a notice issue.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
100% a
notice
notice issue.
and everyone loves Kate today. But, I mean, I'd like to make every accommodation possible, and I agree that we can't bump staff around, because it's
I spoke to Tim earlier, and he says tomorrow's going to be a pretty
packed day.
packed slam day.
What? He said it was going to be easy.
He told me it was going to be nothing.
That's till he sat through today. So you want to take a 5 or 10-minute break, see if we can reach and get some kind of commitment this late in the
Do we
afternoon?
have public
Yeah, let's try
comment?
one more time.
Pardon me?
Do we have public comment? There's a slide in here that says public comment.
There's two public comments, says the county manager's doing his thing.
There's no public here, Bob.
I know, but for the record,
Call for it.
right?
Is there anyone here from the public that would wish to make a statement to the board regarding the discussions of budgets today? Seeing none, public input's closed.
There we go,
Okay,
you got it.
10 minutes?
10 minutes. Gray, you want to explain to us?
Yes, his chief of staff just got back with us and said he is available tomorrow afternoon. So I just spoke with Mr. Jex. We did put some flexibility in tomorrow afternoon, so we can do him right after lunch at 1:30 if the board likes.
1:30 or 1 o'clock? We come back at 1, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1?
Yep, we come back at 1 o'clock.
See, I'm always used to 1:30, yeah, 1 o'clock, sorry.
So 1 o'clock's good with y'all?
Great.
Yep.
Okay, we will see the SOE at 1, let our staff know that there's going to
Chairman,
be
Just
some
to be fair
additional.
just to be fair to the staff, we really need to do a hard stop on that, where it doesn't go past a half hour with the supervisor election.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Of course, yeah. No, I want to make sure our staff understands, all the presenters that are from the departments here at the BCC, make sure they understand there's going to be a little bit of rearrangement
Yep, we will.
in the schedule, so we're not taking up more of their time that's necessary, so. Very good. Anything else good for the order? Commissioner Hearn?
I know I said this earlier today, but tomorrow is the standing SCOPA meeting, so Seminole County Port Authority meeting, and there are issues on that agenda that I do feel like I need to be present for, so whatever I miss, I will catch up with after the fact. I just can't be in two places at one time. It now looks like I'm going to miss a little more.
That's actually
Right.
more important.
Well, we'll try to move it
Yeah.
along as efficiently as we can tomorrow. And just in an abundance of caution, anybody here from the public wishing to make a comment? No one here. We will recess our work session until tomorrow morning at 9:30. Thank you all very much.
All right, then.